The defendant stood up in the middle of Judge Judy's courtroom, looked her dead in the eye, and said the three words that would destroy his life. "I'm leaving now." He grabbed his jacket, turned his back on the judge and walked toward the exit like he owned the place. But what Judge Judy did next didn't just shock everyone in that courtroom. It exposed something about this defendant that the cameras had captured but nobody had noticed yet. Something that would turn this from a simple contempt case into one of the most talked about moments in courtroom television history. And when the bailiff finally pulled up that evidence 3 minutes later, even Judge Judy herself looked stunned. Before we dive into this incredible case, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love seeing where my viewers are around the world. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss more unbelievable cases like this one. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. The morning had started like any other session in Judge Judy's Los Angeles courtroom. The air conditioning hummed steadily, fighting against the heat of the studio lights that beat down on the wooden benches packed with audience members. People sat shoulder to shoulder, some clutching their phones, others fanning themselves with the court documents they'd been handed at the door. A retired teacher in the third row adjusted her glasses. A construction worker in paint-splattered jeans leaned forward, elbows on his knees. College students filming on their phones for TikTok. A mother with her teenage daughter, using this as a teaching moment about accountability. They'd all come for justice, for drama, for that signature Judge Judy moment where someone gets put in their place. But none of them knew they were about to witness something that would make every other case look tame. The bailiff stood at attention near the side entrance, his hand resting casually near his belt, eyes scanning the room with the practiced awareness of someone who'd seen it all. The court reporter sat ready, fingers poised over her machine, waiting for the session to begin. The cameras were positioned perfectly. 3 angles covering the judge's bench, 2 focused on where the plaintiff and defendant would stand, and 1 wide shot capturing the entire courtroom. Everything was in place for what everyone assumed would be a routine small claims case. A landlord suing a tenant for unpaid rent and property damage. Basic stuff. The kind of case Judge Judy could handle in her sleep. Then the plaintiff entered. Marcus Webb, 52 years old, wearing a pressed button-down shirt and khakis that looked like he'd ironed them twice. He carried a manila folder stuffed with papers, his evidence organized with color-coded tabs sticking out the top. He nodded respectfully to the bailiff, took his position, and stood with his hands clasped in front of him, waiting. His face showed the strain of someone who'd been wronged and was tired of fighting. Dark circles under his eyes. Jaw tight. But his posture was straight. Respectful. He believed in the system, believed that if he just showed Judge Judy the truth, justice would follow. He had no idea he was about to get a front-row seat to something unprecedented. None of them did. Because what was about to walk through that defendant's entrance wasn't just another deadbeat tenant. It was something far worse. The door swung open and Derek Thornton walked in like he was entering a nightclub, not a courtroom. 28 years old, wearing a designer hoodie that probably cost more than Marcus Webb's monthly mortgage payment, ripped jeans that were intentionally distressed, and sneakers that still had the price tag attached to the sole. He had his phone in his hand, earbuds dangling from his neck, and he was chewing gum. Actually chewing gum. In Judge Judy's courtroom. The bailiff's eyebrows raised slightly. A woman in the gallery whispered to her husband, "Is he serious right now?" Derek didn't seem to notice or care. He slouched over to the defendant's spot, dropped his phone on the podium with a loud clack, and looked around the courtroom like he was bored already. Marcus glanced at him, then quickly looked away. You could see it in Marcus's face. The frustration. The disbelief that this was the person who'd made his life hell for 6 months. The man who'd stopped paying rent after the first month, who'd trashed the duplex Marcus had spent years renovating, who'd ignored every call, every text, every certified letter. And now couldn't even show basic respect in court. Marcus took a slow breath, steadying himself and focused straight ahead. He was going to let the evidence speak. He had photos. He had the lease agreement with Derek's signature. He had text messages where Derek admitted he wasn't going to pay. He had witnesses. He was ready. The bailiff called out, "All rise for Judge Judy Scheindlin." Everyone in the gallery stood immediately, the sound of shuffling feet and straightening jackets filling the room. Everyone except Derek. He stayed exactly where he was, leaning against the podium, scrolling through his phone. The bailiff's voice cut through again, sharper this time. "Sir, that means you." Derek looked up slowly, made a show of sighing like this was all incredibly inconvenient, and finally stood, but he didn't put his phone away. He just held it at his side, thumb still moving across the screen. Judge Judy entered from her chambers, black robe flowing behind her, gray hair perfectly styled, and that look on her face. The one that said she'd already dealt with 100 cases like this and had zero patience for nonsense. She climbed the steps to her bench, sat down, arranged her papers with crisp efficiency, and looked up at both parties. Her eyes swept over Marcus first. She could read people in seconds, and what she saw was someone who'd been taken advantage of. Someone who'd done everything right and gotten screwed anyway. Then her eyes moved to Derek. The hoodie. The phone. The gum. The posture that screamed disrespect. Her jaw tightened just slightly. Anyone who watched Judge Judy regularly knew that look. It meant someone was about to get destroyed. "This is case number 4721, Marcus Webb versus Derek Thornton," the bailiff announced. Judge Judy looked down at her notes. "Mr. Webb, you're suing Mr. Thornton for $6,000 in unpaid rent and property damage. Is that correct?" Marcus nodded quickly. "Yes, Your Honor. 6 months of unpaid rent at $800 per month, and $1,800 in damages to the property after he finally moved out." His voice was steady, respectful, and tired. Judge Judy made a note. "And Mr. Thornton, you're claiming what exactly? That you don't owe this money?" Derek shrugged. I mean, the place was a dump anyway. He's lucky I even stayed there as long as I did." The gallery erupted in whispers. Someone gasped. A man in the back shook his head in disbelief. Judge Judy's pen stopped moving. She looked up slowly and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Excuse me?" Derek doubled down. "Yeah, I mean there were issues with the place from day one. Water pressure was garbage. The neighbors were loud. I told him about it and he didn't fix anything, so I stopped paying. That's on him." Judge Judy leaned back in her chair, studying him. "Let me understand this. You moved into a property, signed a lease agreeing to pay $800 a month, and then decided on your own that you weren't going to pay because you weren't happy." Derek shrugged again. "Pretty much." Judge Judy's eyes narrowed. "And did you give Mr. Webb written notice of these issues? Did you put anything in writing?" Derek waved his hand dismissively. "I told him. That should be enough." Judge Judy's voice got quieter, which anyone who knew her understood was more dangerous than yelling. "In a legal agreement, Mr. Thornton, telling someone something and documenting it are two very different things. Do you have any proof you notified him of these issues?" Derek smirked. "I don't need proof. He knows I told him." Marcus couldn't stay quiet anymore. "Your Honor, he never told me about any issues. Not once. What he did do was throw parties every weekend, ignore my calls, and leave the place destroyed when he finally left." Judge Judy raised her hand, silencing Marcus gently. "I'll get to you in a moment, Mr. Webb. Right now, I'm trying to understand Mr. Thornton's version of reality." She turned back to Derek. "So you stopped paying rent, gave no written notice, have no documentation of these alleged problems, and then you damaged the property on your way out?" Derek's smirk faded slightly. "I didn't damage anything. It was already messed up." Judge Judy gestured to the bailiff. "Hand me the plaintiff's evidence." The bailiff walked over to Marcus, took the manila folder and brought it to Judge Judy. She opened it and started flipping through photos. Her expression didn't change, but everyone in that courtroom could feel the shift. The photos showed holes punched in walls. A broken kitchen cabinet hanging off its hinges. Carpet stained beyond recognition. A bathroom mirror shattered. Judge Judy held up one photo showing a door completely off its frame. This was already messed up? Derek barely glanced at it. "That door was loose when I moved in." Judge Judy set the photo down carefully. Too carefully. "Mr. Thornton, do you think I'm stupid?" The question hung in the air like a bomb. Derek's eyes widened slightly. "What?" "No, Judge Judy cut him off. "Because the way you're standing in my courtroom, chewing gum, playing with your phone, and lying to my face suggests you think I'm very stupid." Derek finally had the sense to look uncomfortable. He spit his gum into his hand. "I'm not lying. I'm just telling you what happened." Judge Judy leaned forward. "What happened is you decided rent was optional, trashed someone's property, and now you're here wasting my time with excuses. Am I getting warm?" The gallery was dead silent. Every eye was on Derek, watching him squirm. He shifted his weight, glanced at his phone like he wished he could escape into it, and mumbled, "Look, I don't have to sit here and be accused of stuff." Judge Judy's voice was ice. "Yes, Mr. Thornton, you actually do. That's exactly what you have to do. This is a courtroom, not a suggestions box." Derek's face flushed. His jaw clenched. And everyone watching could see it. The entitlement cracking. The arrogance meeting reality. But what nobody knew yet, what the cameras had caught but hadn't revealed, was that Derek's behavior was about to get so much worse. And Judge Judy was about to do something she'd never done before in 25 years on that bench. Judge Judy turned her attention to Marcus, her voice softening just enough to show the contrast between how she treated someone who respected the court and someone who didn't. "Mr. Webb, walk me through the timeline. When did Mr. Thornton stop paying rent?" Marcus straightened up, grateful to finally tell his side. "Your Honor, he paid first month's rent and the security deposit when he moved in last March. That was the only payment I ever received. April came, no rent. I called him, he said he'd have it by the end of the week. Nothing. May, same story. By June, he stopped answering my calls completely." Judge Judy nodded, making notes. "And when did you start eviction proceedings?" Marcus pulled out a document from his folder. "I filed in July, Your Honor. It took 2 months to get him out legally. He finally left in September, and that's when I saw what he'd done to the place." Judge Judy took the eviction paperwork from the bailiff, reviewed it quickly and looked back at Marcus. You followed the legal process. You didn't just throw him out. Marcus nodded firmly. No, Your Honor. I did everything by the book. Even though I was losing money every month, even though I had another tenant ready to move in, I waited for the court order. Derek scoffed loudly. Actually scoffed. Out loud. In the middle of Marcus's testimony. Judge Judy's head snapped toward him so fast that several people in the gallery flinched. Did you just scoff at me? Derek rolled his eyes. I scoffed at him, not you. This whole story is ridiculous. He's acting like some saint when the place was falling apart. Judge Judy's voice dropped to that dangerous quiet level again. Mr. Thornton, when someone else is speaking in my courtroom, you stand there silently. You don't scoff. You don't roll your eyes. You don't breathe loudly. You stand there and you wait your turn. Is that clear? Derek threw his hands up in exasperation. This is ridiculous. I'm not just going to stand here and let him lie about me. Judge Judy slammed her hand on the bench, not quite a gavel pound but close. The sound echoed through the courtroom. Yes, you are. That is exactly what you're going to do because that's how a courtroom works. Derek's face turned red. His hands balled into fists at his sides. You're not even listening to my side. You've already decided I'm wrong. Judge Judy leaned forward, her eyes locked on his. I'm not listening to your side because you haven't said anything worth hearing. You've given me excuses, attitude, and disrespect. You haven't shown me one piece of evidence. Not one document. Not one photo. Not one witness. Nothing. Derek grabbed his phone off the podium. Fine. I've got texts. I've got proof. He started scrolling frantically through his phone, thumb moving rapidly across the screen. Judge Judy watched him, her expression unchanging. Mr. Thornton put the phone down. Derek ignored her, still scrolling. Just give me a second, I know it's here somewhere. Judge Judy's voice rose. Put the phone down now. Derek kept scrolling, muttering to himself. I sent him messages about the water pressure, I know I did. The bailiff took a step toward Derek, hand moving instinctively toward his side. The tension in the room was palpable. People in the gallery sat frozen, some with their hands over their mouths, others leaning forward in disbelief. Marcus stood perfectly still, watching this meltdown happen in real time. Judge Judy stood up from her chair, which she rarely did. When Judge Judy stood up, it meant something serious was about to happen. Mr. Thornton, I have given you a direct order to put your phone down. This is your last warning. Derek finally looked up from his phone, and the expression on his face was pure defiance. Or what? What are you going to do? This is a TV court. You can't actually do anything to me. The courtroom gasped collectively. Someone in the back row whispered, "Oh my God, he didn't just say that." A woman covered her face with her hands. The court reporter's fingers stopped moving, her eyes wide. Even the camera operators exchanged shocked glances. Marcus's jaw dropped. In 25 years of Judge Judy's show, through thousands of cases, dozens of difficult defendants and countless moments of courtroom drama, no one had ever said anything quite that stupid. Judge Judy's face remained completely composed, but everyone in that room could feel the shift. She wasn't angry anymore. She was beyond angry. She had moved into a realm of calm, calculated response that was far more terrifying. She sat back down slowly, folded her hands on the bench, and looked at Derek with an expression that could freeze fire. Mr. Thornton, you just made the biggest mistake of your life. Derek, still holding his phone, still wearing that smirk of false confidence, shrugged one more time. Whatever. I'm done with this circus anyway. And that's when he stood up, grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair, and started walking toward the courtroom exit. The move that would change everything. Derek's sneakers squeaked against the polished courtroom floor as he took his first step away from the podium. The sound cut through the silence like a knife. Marcus's mouth hung open in disbelief. The bailiff's hand moved immediately to his radio. People in the gallery sat paralyzed, unable to process what they were watching. A woman in the front row grabbed her husband's arm, her nails digging into his sleeve. The camera operators zoomed in instinctively, years of training kicking in to capture what was clearly becoming a historic moment. Derek took another step. Then another. His hand reached out toward the door handle, his back completely turned to Judge Judy, to the bench, to everything the courtroom represented. Judge Judy's voice sliced through the air like a blade. Stop walking. 3 words. Come. Clear. Deadly. Derek's hand froze inches from the door handle. He stood there for a moment, his back still to the judge, and you could see his shoulders rise and fall with a deep breath. Then he did something even more shocking than attempting to leave. He turned around slowly, that smirk still plastered on his face, and said, "Why? You gonna stop me?" The courtroom erupted. Not in cheers or applause but in gasps and shocked exclamations. Someone yelled out, "What is wrong with you?" Another voice, older and trembling, said, "Show some respect." The bailiff took 3 quick steps toward Derek, positioned between him and the door now, hand hovering near his belt. Judge Judy remained seated, but everything about her posture had changed. Her spine was straight. Her hands were no longer folded but pressed flat against the bench. Her voice, when she spoke again, was quieter than before, and that made it infinitely more powerful. "Bailiff Byrd, detain Mr. Thornton immediately." Derek's smirk faltered. Just for a second, confusion flashed across his face. "Wait, what?" Judge Judy continued as if he hadn't spoken, her eyes never leaving his face. "Mr. Thornton, you are being held in contempt of this court. You have repeatedly disrespected these proceedings, ignored direct orders, and attempted to leave during active testimony. Bailiff, take him into custody." Byrd moved with professional efficiency, closing the distance between himself and Derek in 2 strides. He took Derek's arm firmly but not roughly, the grip of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Derek tried to pull away, his voice rising in panic. "You can't do this. This isn't even a real court." Judge Judy's response was ice cold. "This is absolutely a real court, Mr. Thornton. These proceedings are legally binding. I'm a real judge. And you are really going to jail." The word jail seemed to hit Derek like a physical blow. His face went from red to pale in seconds. "No, wait, I didn't mean." A second security officer appeared from the side door, moving quickly to assist Byrd. Derek's eyes darted between them, between Judge Judy, between the exit that was now blocked. "This is insane. I'm just trying to leave. You can't arrest me for leaving." Judge Judy leaned forward slightly, and every camera in the room captured the moment perfectly. "I can't arrest you for leaving, Mr. Thornton. I'm arresting you for contempt of court. For disrespecting these proceedings. For ignoring multiple direct orders from the bench. For attempting to flee during active litigation. Would you like me to continue?" Derek's legs actually wobbled. The bravado was crumbling in real time and it was devastating to watch. "I want to talk to a lawyer." Judge Judy nodded slowly. "You'll have that opportunity. After you're processed. Bailiff, remove him." Derek began resisting as the officers took both arms. "Get off me. This is harassment. I know my rights." His voice cracked on the last word, the fear finally breaking through. Judge Judy's voice rose for the first time, filling the entire courtroom. "Your rights? Let me educate you about your rights, Mr. Thornton. You have the right to remain silent, which you should have exercised 20 minutes ago. You have the right to respectful treatment, which you forfeited when you disrespected everyone in this room. And you have the right to face consequences for your actions, which is happening right now." The gallery was dead silent except for Derek's protests as the officers began walking him toward the side exit. His feet dragged. He twisted, trying to look back at Judge Judy. "Please, I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. Can we just finish the case?" Judge Judy didn't even look at him. She was gathering her papers, organizing them with the same calm efficiency she'd shown at the beginning. "Too late for that now, Mr. Thornton." Her voice carried across the room despite being barely above conversational volume. "You had every opportunity to conduct yourself appropriately. You chose differently. Now you live with those choices." Derek's voice broke completely. "I didn't think." Judge Judy cut him off without looking up. "That's correct. You didn't think. And that's why you're leaving in handcuffs instead of just leaving with a judgment against you." The officers reached the side door. One of them pulled it open while the other guided Derek through. His last words before the door closed behind him were barely coherent, something between a sob and a protest. The door clicked shut. The lock engaged with a loud, final sound that echoed through the stunned silence. And then Derek Thornton was gone. The courtroom remained frozen for exactly 5 seconds after the door closed behind Derek. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Even the camera operators seemed stunned, their equipment still rolling but their bodies rigid with shock. Then, like a dam breaking, the entire gallery erupted. People talking over each other, some standing up to see if Derek was really gone, others pulling out their phones to text friends about what they just witnessed. A man in the back row shouted, "I can't believe that just happened." A woman near the front was crying, actual tears streaming down her face as she clutched her chest. The college students who'd been filming were frantically checking their footage, eyes wide with the realization that they just captured something extraordinary. Judge Judy slammed her gavel once, hard. The bang silenced the room instantly. Every head turned back to the bench. She looked across the courtroom with those sharp eyes, making brief contact with seemingly every single person in the gallery. "Let me be absolutely clear about what just occurred," she began, her voice steady and commanding. "That defendant chose to disrespect not just me, not just this courtroom, but every single person who believes in the legal system. Mr. Webb came here seeking justice. He followed the rules. He gathered evidence. He showed respect. And he had to watch someone mock the entire process." She gestured toward Marcus, who still stood at his podium looking like he'd been hit by a truck. "Mr. Thornton will be held in county lockup until he can appear before a criminal court judge on contempt charges," Judge Judy continued. "Those charges carry potential penalties of up to 6 months in jail and a $5,000 fine. That is separate from this case. That is criminal. That goes on his permanent record." The weight of those words settled over the courtroom. The college kids stopped smiling. This wasn't funny anymore. This wasn't just good TV. A man's life was genuinely being altered in real time. A reporter in the third row scribbled frantically in her notepad, already composing the headline in her mind. Judge Judy turned her full attention to Marcus. Her expression softened considerably, the hardness in her eyes replaced with something closer to sympathy. "Mr. Webb, I apologize that you had to witness that spectacle. You deserved better." Marcus shook his head quickly. "Your Honor, I just want what I'm owed. That's all I've ever wanted." Judge Judy nodded. "And you're going to get it? Based on the evidence you've provided, the lease agreement with Mr. Thornton's signature, the photographic evidence of damages, and the eviction documentation showing you followed proper legal procedure, I'm ruling in your favor for the full amount of $6,000. Marcus's knees nearly buckled. He grabbed the podium to steady himself. "Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you so much." His voice cracked with emotion. 6 months of stress, of lost income, of sleepless nights wondering if he'd ever see justice, all of it came pouring out in those few words. A woman in the gallery started clapping. Then another person joined. Within seconds the entire courtroom was applauding, not for the drama, not for the entertainment, but for a decent man who'd been wronged and finally got what he deserved. Judge Judy allowed it for a moment, then raised her hand for silence. "There's something else," she said, and the tone of her voice made everyone lean forward. Marcus looked up, confused. Judge Judy reached for a document that the bailiff had placed on her bench minutes earlier, something that had arrived during Derek's meltdown. "While Mr. Thornton was busy disrespecting this court, my staff was busy doing their job. We ran a standard background check, which we do for all defendants." She paused, looking down at the paper. The courtroom held its collective breath. Mr. Thornton has 3 prior evictions in the past 4 years. 3 different landlords, 3 different properties, same pattern every single time. Marcus's eyes went wide. "I had no idea." Judge Judy looked at him seriously. "That's because he's very good at hiding it. He uses different variations of his name on applications. Derek Thornton. D. Thornton. Derek T. Mitchell, which appears to be his mother's maiden name. He's running a scam, Mr. Webb. He finds landlords who don't dig deep enough, moves in, stops paying rent immediately, and squats until the legal eviction process forces him out. By then he's lived rent-free for months." The revelation hit the courtroom like a thunderbolt. This wasn't just a bad tenant. This was a professional con artist. A man in the gallery stood up abruptly. "That's what he did to my sister. Last year in Pasadena." Judge Judy's gaze snapped to him. "Sir, if your sister was victimized by Mr. Thornton, she needs to file charges. Talk to my bailiff after we adjourn." The man nodded vigorously, pulling out his phone to call his sister right there. Judge Judy returned her attention to Marcus. "Mr. Webb, you're not his first victim. But thanks to your documentation, your patience with the legal process, and your willingness to come here today, you might be his last." Marcus wiped his eyes quickly, overwhelmed. "I just wanted to do the right thing." Judge Judy's expression softened even more. "You did. And that matters more than you know." She made a note on her paperwork. "I'm also adding court costs to your judgment. Mr. Thornton will owe you an additional $500 for your time, your filing fees, and the emotional distress of dealing with this situation." Marcus nodded, unable to speak. Judge Judy looked directly at the cameras. "Let this be a lesson to anyone watching. Respect isn't optional in a courtroom. Integrity isn't negotiable. And karma eventually catches everyone." Judge Judy set down her pen and looked out across the courtroom, her gaze sweeping over every face in the gallery. "I want to take a moment to explain why what happened here today matters beyond this case." The audience settled into attentive silence. Every year, thousands of landlords get taken advantage of by tenants who know exactly how to work the system. They know that eviction takes months. They know that most landlords can't afford to lose that income. They know that by the time they're legally forced out, they've lived rent-free for half a year and the landlord has no way to collect. Marcus nodded, his jaw tight. "That's exactly what happened, Your Honor." Judge Judy continued, her voice gaining intensity. "And people like Mr. Thornton count on decent people like Mr. Webb being too tired, too frustrated, or too broke to fight back. They count on landlords just writing off the loss and moving on because pursuing justice seems too hard, too expensive, too time-consuming." She gestured toward Marcus. "But Mr. Webb didn't give up. He documented everything. He followed every legal requirement. He gathered his evidence. He showed up. And now he's getting justice." The applause started again, but Judge Judy held up her hand. "But here's what most people don't understand. This isn't just about money." She pulled out the photographs of the damaged property again, holding up the image of the destroyed bathroom. "When someone treats your property like garbage, when they break your trust, when they mock the agreement they signed, they're not just stealing money. They're stealing your peace of mind. They're stealing your faith in humanity. They're making you question whether doing the right thing even matters anymore." Her words resonated through the room. Several people nodded. The woman who'd been crying earlier wiped fresh tears from her cheeks. An older man in the back whispered to his wife, That's exactly how I felt when our renter destroyed our place. Judge Judy looked directly at Marcus. Mr. Webb, how long did you work to save money for that duplex? Marcus cleared his throat. 15 years, Your Honor. I was a maintenance worker at a hospital. I saved every extra dollar. I did side jobs on weekends. My wife and I, we sacrificed vacations, new cars, everything so we could buy that property. It was supposed to be our retirement plan. His voice wavered. And he destroyed it in 6 months. Judge Judy's expression hardened. And then had the audacity to walk out of this courtroom like none of it mattered. She turned back to the gallery. That's the real crime here. Not just the unpaid rent. Not just the property damage. The crime is the complete lack of accountability. The belief that consequences don't apply to you. That you can do whatever you want and just walk away. She paused, letting the words sink in. Well, Mr. Thornton learned today that you can't just walk away. Not in my courtroom. Not in any courtroom. Not in life. The retired teacher in the third row raised her hand tentatively. Judge Judy noticed. Yes, ma'am? The woman stood, her voice shaky but determined. Your Honor, I'm a retired teacher. I taught for 33 years. And what I saw today, that young man's behavior, it's what I've been watching get worse and worse for decades. No respect for authority. No accountability. No consequences until it's too late. Judge Judy nodded slowly. You're not wrong. What do you think changed? The teacher's voice grew stronger. We stopped teaching respect. We stopped enforcing boundaries. We told kids they were special no matter what they did. And now we have adults who genuinely believe the rules don't apply to them. Judge Judy absorbed that. I think you're partially right. But I also think people like Mr. Thornton exist in every generation. The difference now is they have more ways to avoid consequences. They can hide behind screens, disappear into the gig economy, move from city to city erasing their history. She held up the background check document. But the truth always catches up. Always. A younger man in the gallery, probably late 20s, stood up. Your Honor, I'm Derek's age. And I'm embarrassed. We're not all like that. Judge Judy's expression softened slightly. I know you're not. But what are you going to do about the ones who are? The young man looked confused. What do you mean? Judge Judy leaned forward. I mean, when you see your friends dodging responsibility, when you see people your age treating others like garbage, do you speak up? Do you call it out? Or do you stay silent because it's easier? The young man looked down. Honestly? Usually I stay silent. Judge Judy nodded. And that's how people like Mr. Thornton keep getting away with it. Good people staying silent. The courtroom felt the weight of that statement. Mr. Webb didn't stay silent. He fought back. He stood up. And look what happened. Marcus spoke up quietly. Your Honor, I almost didn't come today. I almost just let it go. My wife told me it wasn't worth the stress. Judge Judy looked at him intently. What made you change your mind? Marcus took a deep breath. Because I kept thinking if I don't stop him, he's just going to do this to someone else. Some other person who worked their whole life for something. And I couldn't live with that. Judge Judy smiled, a rare genuine smile. That, Mr. Webb, is integrity. And it's exactly what this world needs more of. Judge Judy gathered her papers, tapping them against the bench to align them perfectly, a ritual she'd performed thousands of times. But this case felt different and everyone in the courtroom knew it. She looked up one final time, her eyes moving from Marcus to the gallery to the cameras that would carry this moment to millions of viewers. Before I adjourn, I want to leave you with something important. The courtroom went completely silent. Even the people who'd been whispering stopped mid-sentence. What happened today wasn't just about an entitled defendant getting arrested. It was about a fundamental choice we all face every single day. Do we take responsibility for our actions or do we run from them? She paused, letting the question hang in the air. Mr. Thornton chose to run. He ran from his rent obligations. He ran from the damage he caused. And when he was finally confronted with the truth, he literally tried to run from this courtroom. And now he's sitting in a cell learning that running doesn't solve problems. It multiplies them. Judge Judy's voice softened but lost none of its power. Mr. Webb, on the other hand, stood still. He faced a difficult situation. He followed the rules even when it cost him money and sleep and peace of mind. He showed up when it would have been easier to give up. And now he's walking out of here with justice. Marcus nodded, his eyes glistening. Thank you, Your Honor. For everything. Judge Judy acknowledged him with a small nod. Thank you for reminding us what integrity looks like. She turned to face the gallery directly. Some of you came here today for entertainment. You got more than that. You got a lesson that applies to every relationship, every job, every commitment you'll ever make. Respect the process. Honor your word. And when you're wrong, own it with dignity instead of running away like a coward. The retired teacher in the third row started clapping first. Then the construction worker. Then the entire courtroom rose to their feet in applause, not for the drama, but for the truth that had been spoken. Judge Judy stood, signaling the session was over. This court is adjourned. Mr. Webb, see the bailiff to get your judgment paperwork. Everyone else, remember what you witnessed here today and make better choices. She stepped down from the bench and walked toward her chambers. As she reached the door, she paused and looked back at Marcus one more time. And Mr. Webb? Next time, check the background first. Marcus laughed, a real genuine laugh that broke the tension he'd been carrying for months. Yes, Your Honor. I definitely will. The doors opened and people began filing out, their conversations animated and loud. Phone screens lit up throughout the room as people texted, posted, shared what they'd just seen. Within an hour, clips would be everywhere. By the next morning, Derek Thornton's walkout and arrest would be trending on every social media platform. And millions of people would learn the same lesson Marcus already knew. In court and in life, respect isn't optional. Accountability isn't negotiable. And Judge Judy doesn't play games. Justice isn't just served in her courtroom. It's guaranteed.